This is a compilation of all the videos I've made on descriptive writing. Please enjoy. Most students do not know how to begin writing a descriptive essay because they do not know how to structure it. So that's what we're going to be learning today. Welcome to English Step by Step. My name is Miss Wee, and we will be doing descriptive writing. So like I said, we'll be doing the structure of descriptive writing today. There are 4 types of order. First, spatial order, chronological order, order of importance, and sensory order. We will start with the first one. So the first one is spatial order. So spatial order organizes details based on their physical location or layout. This is especially useful for describing places, objects, or scenes. So for example, if describing a room, you might start by describing what's near the door, then move to other parts of the room in a logical flow. So it may be left to right, top to bottom, or front to back. So here are some example questions. So in May-June 2023, paper 2-1, there was this question: describe a shop you remember visiting in the past. So this would be done in spatial order. Another one, write a description of an untidy room. So you may also want to do this in spatial order. This was from May-June 2023, paper 2-2. Then we have describe a busy workplace. This is from October-November 2021. Describe the inside of an interesting shop. Write a description of a place where animals are kept in captivity. So any of these we would use spatial order. So here's an example. Write a description of an untidy room. Upon entering the room, the disarray is immediately evident, with clutter and chaos taking over every corner. Starting at the entrance, shoes are haphazardly strewn near the door, some overturned, others in mismatched pairs, creating a tripping hazard. Next to the door, a coat rack leans slightly, weighed down by a pile of jackets and scarves draped carelessly, with a few pieces spilling onto the floor. Moving further into the room to the left, a large unmade bed dominates the space. The sheets are tangled in a messy heap, half hanging off the edge, while pillows are scattered, some on the bed, others on the floor. A wrinkled blanket is bunched up at the foot of the bed, as if hastily tossed aside. Above the bed, the walls are cluttered with posters and pictures, many of them askew, some barely clinging to the wall. Next to the bed, a bedside table groans under the weight of empty water bottles, crumpled tissues, and several books stacked haphazardly. A lamp with a crooked shade sits in one corner, while a phone charger dangles precariously off the edge, tangled with a pair of earphones. The drawer is half open, revealing a chaotic jumble of papers and miscellaneous items spilling out. As the eye moves across the room, the floor is a maze of clothes, t-shirts, jeans, and socks from a patchwork on the carpet, some in small piles, others just scattered across the room. A hamper sits against the far wall, overflowing with laundry, while more clothes drape over the back of a nearby chair, creating a small amount of fabric. To the right, a desk is barely visible beneath the clutter. Papers, notebooks, and pens are strewn across its surface, along with old coffee mugs and snack wrappers. The chair in front of the desk is buried under a jacket and a bag, making it nearly impossible to sit. Finally, near the window, the curtains hang unevenly, with one side pulled higher than the other. Dust gathers on the windowsill, which is cluttered with trinkets, empty bottles, and an old wilted plant in a pot. The room is a picture of neglect, with every surface serving as a reminder of the mess that has accumulated over time. So let's have a look at the order. So this is spatial order. We started with the entrance, with the shoes and the coat rack, and then the left side of the room with the unmade bed and posters and pictures on the wall. And then beside the bed, you have a bedside table and a half-open drawer. Then the floor with clothes scattered around and an overflowing laundry hamper. And then on the right side of the room, we have a desk and a chair. And then finally near the window with the curtains and the windowsill. Next, we're going to move on to chronological order. Describes events or changes over time in the order they occurred. This structure is often used for describing events, experiences, or processes. So when describing a day at the beach, you might start with the morning, then move through the day, ending with the sunset. Here are some example questions. Write a description with the title, The Performer. Write the experience of seeing an animal. Describe a group of people meeting for the first time after a long separation. Describe the preparations you make for an important journey. Write a description of a group of people who have become stuck somewhere. So here's an example essay. Describe a group of people meeting for the first time after a long separation. The meeting began in a quiet park on a cool, sunny afternoon. As the first person arrived, the air was filled with a mix of excitement and nervousness. It had been years since the group had last been together, and the anticipation hung in the air. Soon, another familiar face appeared at the park's entrance, and with a wave, they rushed towards each other. The initial hesitation gave way to wide smiles and a tight hug, as if no time had passed at all. They exchanged a few words, but the real joy was in the shared silence of just being in each other's company again. Minutes later, more friends trickled in, one by one. Each arrival brought the same sequence of emotions. First, the moment of recognition, then the smiles that stretched wide with nostalgia, and finally the embraces, sometimes accompanied by laughter or playful teasing. I can't believe it's really you, echoed throughout the park as old memories came flooding back. As the group formed, the reunion truly began. They naturally fell into a circle, a little awkward at first as everyone adjusted to the presence of those who had been absent from their daily lives for so long. Faces had changed. There were new haircuts. Some had glasses now. A few had aged. But the essence of each person was unmistakably familiar. The conversation started slowly, with small talk about work, life, and the usual polite questions, but it didn't take long for the atmosphere to shift. Gradually, someone cracked a joke about an old inside story, and the group erupted into laughter. The awkwardness melted away, and soon they were talking over each other, as if trying to make up for all the lost time. The years of separation faded, replaced by the camaraderie they had once had. They reminisced about past adventures, their youthful mischief, and the countless shared moments that had defined their friendship. As the sun began to set, they realized how much time had passed. The energy slowed, and the conversation shifted to more heartfelt matters. They spoke about what had changed in their lives, the highs and lows they had faced without each other, and how much it meant to be together again. The reunion, once filled with nervousness, ended with a sense of warmth, connection, and the promise that it wouldn't be the last time. So let's look at the order. So this started with the initial arrival, the first person, and then another, and then the gradual gathering. Others began to arrive. Formation of the group, so they form a circle, and there are changes in appearance, and then there is small talk, there's conversation, breaking of ice, somebody cracks a joke, and then there's deeper connection. So they discuss more heartfelt matters, and then there's a conclusion. So the reunion ends on a warm note, and they promise to see each other again. Next, we're going to move on to the order of importance. Arranges details from least to most important or vice versa, helping to build up to the most vivid or impactful description. You might describe the minor features of a person's appearance first, then build up to the most striking features like their eyes or smile. Or you might want to do it the other way around. Example questions: describe a place that is special to you. Describe a person who has had a significant influence on your life. Describe a festival or event you attended. Describe a time when you were in a busy place. So an example: describe a place that is special to you. The most important and defining aspect of the old seaside cottage is the overwhelming sense of peace it brings. Nestled on the edge of a quiet, secluded beach, the cottage is a haven of calm. As soon as one steps onto the weathered wooden porch, the rush of daily life seems to fade away. The only sounds that greet visitors are the rhythmic crashing of waves against the shore and the gentle rustling of wind through the tall grasses. It's as if the world slows down here, inviting anyone who enters to breathe deeply and simply exist in the moment. Next to that feeling of serenity is the way the cottage embraces nature. The windows, large and open, frame views of the endless ocean stretching out toward the horizon. Sunlight floods the room in the early morning, casting a golden glow across the rustic furniture. Seagulls often glide by, their calls adding a soothing background melody to the peacefulness inside. The air always smells of salt and fresh seaweed, a reminder of the untamed beauty just steps away. Every aspect of the cottage feels in harmony with the surrounding environment, making it impossible to forget the presence of the sea. The third most significant element of of this place is its history. The cottage has been in the family for generations, passed down from grandparents to parents, and now cherished by children. Every corner of the house holds a memory. The kitchen, with its worn wooden countertops, is where countless family dinners have been prepared. The dining table, slightly uneven from years of use, has witnessed both quiet breakfasts and lively conversations during summer vacations. Even the walls, adorned with old photographs and paintings of the sea, carry stories of those who have visited over the decades. This sense of heritage creates a deep connection to the past, making the cottage more than just a place. It is a living testament to family bonds. Lastly, what makes this cottage truly special is its simplicity. There are no modern luxuries here. The rooms are small, the furniture mismatched, and the decor humble. But this simplicity is what makes it a sanctuary. It strips away the distortions of the outside world, leaving space for reflection, connection, and peace, a rare treasure in the fast pace of modern life. So the order of this description follows the order of importance. It starts with a sense of peace and serenity, and then the connection with nature, and then history and family heritage, and lastly, simplicity of the cottage. Sorry about this one. Okay, lastly, we're going to do sensory order. Focuses on descriptions based on the 5 senses. So you have sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and taste. So each paragraph can emphasize a different sense. For example, in describing a garden, one paragraph might focus on the colors and shapes, another on the sounds of birds and rustling leaves and so on. So the British spelling of color should be COLOUR. Sorry about this. So example questions. Describe a city street in very bad weather. Describe a description with the title The Beach by Night. Describe your favorite season. Describe a bustling marketplace. So we have here the beach by night. The beach at night feels like stepping into a different world where the usual chaos of the day gives way to serene, almost mystical atmosphere. The first thing that greets you is the rhythmic crash of waves hitting the shore, more pronounced in the quiet darkness. Each wave rolls in with a deep, thunderous hum, followed by the gentle hiss as the water retreats back into the ocean. Occasionally, the call of a distant seagull can be heard, echoing through the night air, adding to the sense of solitude. Moving closer to the shore, the smell of the sea becomes stronger, carried on the cool breeze that sweeps in from the water. The salty tang of the ocean fills the lungs, fresh and invigorating, blending with the faint scent of seaweed and damp sand. There's something purifying about the scent at night, more crisp and distinct, as if the darkness heightens every sensory detail. As your feet sink into the cool, grainy sand, a different kind of sensation takes over. The sand, no longer sun-warmed, feels cool against the skin, soft and damp beneath each step. Occasionally, the water laps against the ankles, startlingly cold yet refreshing. The night air is cool too, with a slight bite to it, contrasting sharply with the warmth of the day. The breeze whips gently, brushing against the skin like a soft caress, causing goosebumps to rise as it intertwines with the steady rhythm of the ocean's waves. The moon hangs low in the sky, casting a silvery light that reflects off the surface of the water. Each ripple of the ocean glistens in the moonlight, turning the sea into a shimmering, undulating mirror. The horizon is a shadowy line, barely distinguishable in the distance, while the stars twinkle faintly above, like tiny pinpricks of light in the velvet sky. The beach itself is almost unrecognizable at night, dark and mysterious, the familiar landmarks now mere silhouettes. The quiet stillness is broken only by the gentle flow of a nearby pier, its lights flickering against the black backdrop. The taste of the ocean lingers faintly on the lips, a salty reminder of the sea's vastness. With each breath, the senses are awakened, fully immersed in the quiet yet powerful beauty of the beach by night. So let's look at the order. So it starts with the sound of the waves, okay, followed by smell, so the salty scent of the sea, touch, so the sensation of the cool sand, the sight, so we have the moonlight, etc., and the stars, and taste, so the taste of salt lingering on the lips. So what's important to note is that there can be more than one way of describing something. So for example, describe a bustling marketplace. I'm going to show you how it's done in 4 different orders. So this is the bustling marketplace done in spatial order. I will not read it to you, otherwise this video is going to be too long. If you want to read it, please pause the video to read it. But you can see that it starts at the entrance and then it moves to the heart of the market. And then it goes to the right of the market and then to the far end of the market. So you can see very quickly already that is in spatial order. Let's move on to the next one. This is chronological order. So again, if you want to read it, please pause the video to read it. But you can see that it starts at dawn and then the morning progresses. And then here we have midday and then here afternoon. So you can see that it's in chronological or time order. Next, we have order of importance. So we start with the most remarkable feature and then the second and then next and then lastly. Here we have sensory order, and you can see that we're starting with the sense of hearing. So all the sounds will be here, followed by sight, color, and everything. And then we have smell. After that, we have feel. And then we have taste. So we have the 5 senses here. The last thing that I want to do with you is the key differences between narrative and descriptive writing. If you haven't watched my video on narrative writing, please do so. In that video, I highlighted the plot or the structure of the narrative essay, which is beginning, build up, climax, resolution, and then ending. In the descriptive essay, you will not have this. You will not have conflict. So you will not need to build it up to a climax and resolve it, etc. Instead, we will follow one of the orders that we did today. In narrative writing, you need to have a main character or a few, conflict, and perhaps dialogue as well. In descriptive writing, we are more interested in descriptive language, which includes literary devices, showing and not telling, using your five senses, sensory details, and so on. At the end of a narrative essay, you may want to include a moral lesson, but in descriptive writing, we're more interested in evoking emotions. So here we have the one that we wrote earlier, The Beach by Night. And here we have a narrative. Again, I'm not going to read it to you. You can pause the video to have a look, but I will just highlight the structure. So here we have sensory order. So we have the sound, the crash of the waves, and then the smell, and then the feel, and then the sight, and the taste. So this is a descriptive essay. And here we have a narrative essay. This is the beginning, the build up, the climax, resolution, and ending. So the structures are very different. So you must make sure that you use the right structure. If it's a narrative question, you must have a plot. If it's a descriptive essay, you must make sure that you have an appropriate structure.
Hello, students. Welcome back to English Step by Step, the channel where we help you ace your IGCSE English exams. Today, we're diving into a powerful technique that will elevate your descriptive writing, the drop shift zoom method. If you've ever struggled to make your descriptions stand out, this is the lesson for you. The drop shift zoom method is a structured approach to descriptive writing. It helps you create vivid, engaging scenes that draw your reader in. Here's how it works. Start by focusing on one specific detail or object in your scene. This drop anchors your reader in the setting. Next, shift the perspective or focus. This adds variety and keeps your description dynamic. Finally, zoom in or out to highlight details or provide context. Add contrast by pulling back to reveal the broader setting. Let's break this down with an example. Imagine you're describing a beach. Here's how we'd apply the drop, shift, zoom, and zoom out method. Step 1. Drop. Drop into the setting with a vivid detail. The first rays of sunlight spilled over the horizon, setting the ocean aflame with hues of gold and orange. Step 2. Shift the focus to a different time frame. Hours earlier, the beach had been silent, shrouded in a soft gray mist that muffled the sound of the waves. Step 3. Zoom. Zoom in to focus on an intricate detail. Tiny bubbles clung to the edges of seashells, glinting like diamonds as the tide retreated. Step 4. Zoom out. Finally, zoom out to give a broader view of the entire setting. The shoreline stretched endlessly, a ribbon of gold dividing the vibrant ocean from the lush green dunes beyond. By following these 4 steps, you'll create a description that is rich, layered, and engaging for your reader. Here's a paragraph using the drop, shift, zoom, and zoom out method. Imagine the task is to describe a winter forest. The snow-laden branches of the towering pines glistened under the pale morning sun, their shadows stretching like fingers across the powdery ground. Hours before dawn, the forest had been in unbroken silence, its secrets buried beneath layers of frost. Now a solitary robin perched on a low branch, its feathers puffed against the cold as it chirped a tentative melody. Beyond the trees, the forest opened into a vast clearing where the sunlight danced on a frozen lake surrounded by a ring of evergreens. Notice how the paragraph moves smoothly from a close detail to a time shift, then zooms in and finally pulls back for a wider view. Here's an entire essay using the drop, shift, zoom, and zoom out method.
A busy marketplace, using the drop, shift, zoom, and zoom out method. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the sharp tang of ripe citrus as sunlight filtered through the canopy of colorful tarpaulins stretched over the marketplace. A vendor's call pierced the air. Apples! Fresh apples! Drawing my eyes to the polished red fruit piled high in woven baskets. Beneath the cheerful hum of conversation, the rhythmic clang of metal echoed as a blacksmith demonstrated his trade, sparks flying with every strike of the hammer. Only an hour earlier, the market had been a ghostly scene, its stalls draped in shadows and silence. Vendors arrived in the pre-dawn stillness, setting up their wares by lantern light. The air had been crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew-soaked earth, and the only sounds were the soft shuffle of footsteps and the rustling of fabric as goods were arranged. Slowly, the marketplace had come to life, a symphony of sights, sounds, and smells replacing the quiet. Near a spice stall, vibrant bursts of color caught my eye. Mounds of turmeric, paprika, and saffron were displayed like tiny, fiery hills, their scents intoxicating. A woman's hands moved deftly as she measured out the spices, her bangles clinking softly with each motion. Close by, a child reached eagerly for a piece of sugar-dusted candy, his face lighting up as the vendor handed it to him. The intricate details of the marketplace were a kaleidoscope of life and culture, each moment brimming with energy. The entire market stretched in every direction, a bustling maze of activity framed by towering palm trees swaying gently in the breeze. Beyond the stalls, the city loomed, its domed rooftops shimmering in the midday sun. The noise of the market seemed to merge with the distant chatter of birds and the occasional honk of a passing rickshaw. It was a world unto itself where every corner held a story waiting to be discovered.
Practice this method, and your descriptions will captivate any reader. Now that you understand the method, here are some tips to make it work for you. 1. Use all 5 senses. Don't just describe what you see. Think about sounds, smells, textures, and even tastes. For example, what does the crisp winter air smell like? How does the frost-covered bark feel to the touch? For a video lesson on using your 5 senses, please click on the link above. 2. Vary sentence lengths. Short sentences can add drama, while longer ones can paint a detailed picture. For a video lesson on varying sentence length, please click on the link above. 3. Show, don't tell. Instead of saying it was a magical forest, show the magic through your description. For a video lesson on show, don't tell, please click on the link above. 4. Practice regularly. Try the drop, shift, and zoom out method with different scenes: a bustling market, a quiet forest, or a rainy city street. Now it's your turn. Here's a challenge for you. Describe a park in the early morning using the drop, shift, zoom, and zoom out method. Post your description in the comments below. And that's the drop, shift, zoom, and zoom out method. Remember, descriptive writing isn't just about what you write. It's about how you make your reader feel. If you found this lesson helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to English Step by Step, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Hey everyone. Today we're diving into some of the most common literary devices that you'll come across in your high school studies. So first off, what are literary devices? Simply put, they are tools that writers use to create meaning, add depth, and make their writing more impactful. Let's start with 2 key players, similes and metaphors. These are all about making comparisons, but in slightly different ways. A simile compares 2 things using the words like or as. For example, her eyes sparkled like diamonds. Here, we're comparing her eyes to diamonds using like. Simple, right? And then we have metaphors. These also compare two things, but without using like or as. For example, the world is a stage. In this case, we're saying the world is a stage. No like or as needed. Now take a second and try coming up with your own simile or metaphor. Think of something around you and compare it. Next, let's talk about personification and pathetic fallacy. These devices give human traits to non-human things. Personification gives life to inanimate objects. For example, the wind whispered through the trees. We know the wind can't really whisper, but this device helps create a vivid image. And then we have pathetic fallacy, which is a type of personification when emotions are given to nature. For example, the angry storm clouds rolled in. Here, we're attributing anger to the storm clouds, reflecting a mood or atmosphere. Think about how weather in stories often mirrors the mood. That's pathetic fallacy in action. Next up is symbolism and idioms. These are all about meaning beyond the surface. A symbol is something that stands for something else. For example, a dove often symbolizes peace. It's not just a bird, it represents an idea. Then there's an idiom. This is a phrase that doesn't make literal sense, but has a known meaning. For example, it's raining cats and dogs. No actual pets are falling from the sky, but we know it means heavy rain. What are some idioms you've heard before? Leave a comment below. Let's move on to alliteration and onomatopoeia, two devices that sound cool, literally. Alliteration is when multiple words in a sentence start with the same sound. For example, the slithering snake silently slid. This creates a rhythm and makes the sentence more memorable. Onomatopoeia, on the other hand, is when a word sounds like the noise it describes. Words like buzz, bang, and sizzle bring sound to the text. Think of an onomatopoeia you hear every day and share it in the comments. Up next are rhyme and rhythm, two devices you see often in poetry. Rhyme is when words have the same ending sounds, like the cat sat on the mat, and rhythm refers to the beat or flow of a poem. For example, listen to this. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? The rhythm here gives the line a musical quality. Try clapping along to the rhythm next time you read poetry. Now, let's have some fun with puns and rhetorical questions. A pun is a play on words that's often humorous. For example, I used to be a baker, but I couldn't make enough dough. It's funny because dough can mean money or bread. And a rhetorical question is a question asked for effect, not to get an answer. For example, isn't it obvious? The answer is implied, so no response is needed. Got it? Of course you do. Now for some drama. Let's talk about short dramatic sentences and repetition. A short dramatic sentence is a brief, impactful statement like, then it happened. This leaves the reader in suspense. And repetition is when words or phrases are repeated to emphasize a point. For example, he ran and ran until he couldn't run anymore. This device helps build intensity. Feel the drama? Finally, let's talk about triplets and listing. A triplet is when three words or phrases are used together for emphasis. For example, I came, I saw, I conquered. It creates a powerful rhythm. And listing is when several items are presented in sequence. For example, she packed her bag with clothes, books, snacks, and shoes. See how listing makes it easy to remember all the details? That wraps up our literary device lesson for today. Now you're equipped to spot these devices in your reading and use them in your writing. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more lessons like this. And let me know in the comments which literary device you're most excited to try out in your own writing. See you next time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's lesson, we're going to dive into some key literary devices that will make your writing more powerful and your reading more insightful. If you've ever heard terms like irony, foreshadowing, or oxymoron and felt a little confused, don't worry. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what they mean and how to spot them in literature. So grab your notebooks because we've got a lot to cover. Let's jump right in. First up is irony. Now, irony occurs when there's a difference between what we expect to happen and what actually happens. There are three types of irony: verbal, situational, and dramatic. Verbal irony, when someone says the opposite of what they mean. Example, if it's pouring rain outside and someone says, "What a beautiful day." Situational irony, when the outcome is the opposite of what we expect. Example, a fire station burns down. Unexpected, right? Dramatic irony, when the audience knows something the characters don't. Example, in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, we know Juliet is still alive, but Romeo doesn't, leading to tragedy. Next, we have foreshadowing. This is when the author gives us hints or clues about what will happen later in the story. Example, in Harry Potter, the early mention of the Philosopher's Stone foreshadows its significance in the plot. Foreshadowing keeps readers engaged, making them eager to see how the hints unfold. Oxymoron is when two contradictory words are placed together to create a new meaning. Example, common oxymorons include phrases like bittersweet or deafening silence. It's a way to highlight contradictions or complexities in ideas. Allusion is a reference to a well-known person, place, event, or work of art that adds deeper meaning to a text. Example, saying someone is a real Romeo alludes to Shakespeare's famous character from Romeo and Juliet, meaning the person is romantic. Moving on to juxtaposition. This is when two opposite ideas or images are placed close together to highlight their differences. Example, in A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, the famous opening line uses juxtaposition. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This contrast emphasizes the conflicting experiences of the time. Anaphora is the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses or sentences. Example, in Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, he repeats, "I have a dream," multiple times, emphasizing his vision for equality and civil rights. Euphemism is when we use a mild or indirect word to replace a harsher, more direct one. Instead of saying someone died, we might say they passed away. It's a way to soften the impact of difficult topics. Let's talk about tone and mood. Tone is the author's attitude toward the subject, and mood is the emotional atmosphere of a text. Example of tone. A sarcastic tone would sound like, "Oh, sure, I'd love to do extra homework." Example of mood. In a horror story, the mood might be dark and tense, filled with eerie sounds and creepy settings. Consonance is the repetition of consonant sounds, usually at the end of words, while assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds within words. Consonance example, the lumpy, bumpy road, where the P sound is repeated. Assonance example, the early bird catches the worm, with the E sound repeating in early and bird. Flashback is when the narrative goes back in time to give the audience background information. Example, in To Kill a Mockingbird, Scout often recalls past events, helping readers understand her childhood and the roots of her community's prejudice. A paradox is a statement that seems contradictory but actually reveals a deeper truth. Example, less is more. How can less be more? It's a paradox, but it means that simplicity can be more impactful than complexity. Understatement is when something is presented as being less important or significant than it actually is. Example, if you were in a massive storm and said, "It's just a little windy," you're using understatement to downplay the severity of the situation. Motif is a recurring element or idea that has symbolic significance in a story. Example, in The Great Gatsby, the green light is a motif representing Gatsby's hopes and dreams for the future. Finally, we have cacophony. This is the use of harsh, jarring sounds to create a sense of disorder or chaos. Example, a sentence like, "The clanging, banging, and screeching of the factory filled the air," uses cacophony to convey a noisy, chaotic environment. And there you have it. 15 essential literary devices you can use to analyze texts and improve your own writing. Whether you're reading for school or working on your own creative projects, understanding these tools will give you deeper insight into how language works. Don't forget to hit the like button if this video helped you, and subscribe for more writing tips and English lessons. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into a powerful writing technique that can take your storytelling to the next level. It's called show, don't tell. Whether you're writing stories for school, exams, or just for fun, this technique will help make your writing more vivid and engaging. So grab a notebook and let's get started. So, what does show, don't tell mean? Basically, instead of directly telling your reader how a character feels or what's happening, you show it through actions, dialogue, and sensory details. This makes your writing more immersive and allows readers to experience the story for themselves. Let's look at a quick example. Which one of these sentences is more interesting? Sarah was angry. Sarah clenched her fists, her face turning red as she glared at the floor. The first sentence tells us what Sarah is feeling, but the second one shows us through her actions. It makes the reader feel like they're right there with Sarah, experiencing her anger. Now, why is this technique so important? Showing rather than telling helps you. 1. Engage the reader's imagination. 2. Create vivid imagery. 3. Build stronger connections with characters. 4. Make your writing more memorable. When you show your readers what's happening, instead of just telling them, you invite them to visualize the scene and interpret the emotions on their own. It brings your writing to life. Now that we understand why show, don't tell is important, let's talk about how to do it. I'm going to walk you through 4 key strategies that will help you master this technique. First, use actions to show how a character feels. Instead of telling us, for example, John was nervous, you could show his nervousness with something like, John fidgeted with his sleeves, his foot tapping nervously against the floor. See the difference? By showing what John is doing, we can infer that he's nervous without needing to be directly told. Next, use dialogue to reveal emotions. Instead of writing, Maria was excited about the trip, try using her words to show her excitement. For example, I can't believe it. We're going to Paris. I've been dreaming of this for years. Her dialogue expresses excitement naturally without you having to say it outright. Plus, it adds personality to your character. The third technique is to use sensory details. Bring your reader into the scene by describing what your characters see, hear, smell, taste, or feel. Instead of telling us, the garden was beautiful, you could write, bright red roses climbed the old brick wall, their sweet scent filling the warm afternoon air. Here you're using sensory details to paint a picture in the reader's mind, allowing them to experience the beauty of the garden. Finally, let's talk about showing internal thoughts. Sometimes, instead of telling us Jake was scared, you can show it by letting us into Jake's mind. For example, Jake's heart raced. What if they found out? He could feel the cold sweat forming on the back of his neck. By showing Jake's thoughts and physical reactions, you let the reader feel his fear without simply stating it. Now, let's take a look at a few more examples and practice identifying where we could show instead of tell. Here's the first sentence. The party was fun. How could we show this instead of just saying it? How about this? Laughter echoed through the room as people danced and talked, their faces glowing in the soft light of the chandeliers. See how much more engaging that is? Instead of just saying it was fun, we show the atmosphere and the action, letting the reader imagine the scene. Now it's your turn. I'm going to give you a few telling sentences, and I want you to try turning them into showing sentences in the comments below. Ready? Here we go. 1. It was a hot day. 2. She was tired. 3. The city was busy. Remember to use actions, dialogue, sensory details, and internal thoughts to bring these sentences to life. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Let's quickly recap what we've learned about show, don't tell. 1. Use actions to reveal emotions. 2. Use dialogue to show how characters feel. 3. Include sensory details to paint vivid scenes. 4. Show internal thoughts to express feelings. These techniques will help you make your writing more immersive, engaging, and memorable. Practice them, and soon enough, you'll be showing instead of telling like a pro. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a new lesson. And let me know in the comments what topic you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching, and keep writing those vivid stories.
Imagine reading this description. The garden was filled with flowers of various colors. Butterflies flitted from one bloom to another, and a fountain trickled in the corner. It's fine, but it only uses the sense of sight. Now compare it to this. The garden brimmed with life. Vibrant roses and sunflowers splashed the air with color, their sweet perfume mingling with the earthy scent of freshly watered soil. Butterflies danced silently over the blooms, while the low hum of bees added rhythm to the scene. The cool stone of the bench pressed against my fingertips as I bit into a ripe strawberry, its tart juice exploding on my tongue. See how using all 5 senses makes the scene feel alive? That's the power of sensory writing, and today I'm going to show you how to master it. By engaging sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, you draw your reader into the story. It's the difference between observing a scene and feeling like you're in it. Let's break it down with examples and tips for each sense. Ready? Let's start with sight, the easiest and most commonly used sense. Sight, the building block of description. Most of us describe what we see first, but we can elevate these descriptions with vivid detail. Instead of saying, "The park was lively," try this. Joggers wove between children chasing each other across the green, their laughter rising above the rustling trees. Additional examples. The sky was blue. The sky stretched in endless cobalt, broken only by wisps of white cloud drifting lazily. The house was old. The house leaned precariously, its wooden shutters peeling and ivy crawling up its weathered bricks. Sound creates mood and adds layers to your scene. Instead of saying, "The room was noisy," say, "Chairs scraped across the wooden floor, while bursts of laughter punctuated the clinking of glasses." Additional examples. The forest was quiet. The silence of the forest was broken only by the distant crack of a twig and the soft rustle of leaves. The waves were loud. Waves crashed against the rocks, a deep, rhythmic boom that echoed through the salt-tinged air. Smell, unlock emotion and memory. Smell is one of the most evocative senses. Instead of saying, "The kitchen smelled good," say, "The aroma of garlic sizzling in olive oil filled the kitchen, mingling with the tangy scent of freshly squeezed lemons." Additional examples. The flowers smelled nice. The sweet, heady fragrance of lilacs floated on the breeze, carrying whispers of spring. The air smelled bad. A sharp, acrid stench hung in the alley, mingling with the metallic tang of spilled beer. Taste doesn't appear in every scene, but when it does, it's impactful. Instead of saying the pie was delicious, try, the flaky crust melted on my tongue, giving way to the warm sweetness of spiced apples and a hint of cinnamon. Additional examples: the soup was salty, the broth was rich and savory, its saltiness balanced by the sweetness of caramelized onions. The candy was sweet. The candy snapped under my teeth, releasing a burst of honeyed flavor that lingered long after. 5. Touch. Ground the reader in the scene. Touch helps make your descriptions tangible. Instead of saying, "The sand was soft," say, "The warm, grainy sand sifted through my fingers, leaving a faint grit behind." Additional examples: the fabric was rough. The coarse burlap scratched against my skin, its fibers stiff and unyielding. The water was cold. The icy water nipped at my toes, sending a shiver up my spine. Time to practice. Imagine you're at a carnival. Write one sentence for each sense. What do you see? Smell, taste, feel. Pause the video and try it out. How did your scene turn out? Sensory writing takes practice, but with time, it will transform your work. If you found this helpful, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to English Step by Step, and share your carnival descriptions in the comments. I'd love to read them. See you next time.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about why we need to use literary devices when writing narrative and descriptive essays. Welcome to English Step by Step. I am Miss Wee. We are going to look at two essays. The first one is the literal version, so there are no literary devices. The House on the Hill.
The house stood on a hill, surrounded by trees. It was old and empty. The roof had holes, and the walls were cracked. The windows were broken, and the door hung on one hinge. There was a garden in front of the house, but it was overgrown. The grass was tall, and weeds covered the path. Inside, the house was dark and quiet. The wooden floor creaked underfoot. The air smelled damp. There was a table in the kitchen, but one leg was broken. The chairs were dusty, and cobwebs hung in the corners. Upstairs, the bedrooms were empty except for a bed frame in one of them. At night, the wind blew through the broken windows, making the curtains flutter. The house was cold and felt abandoned. Nobody came here anymore.
Now we're going to look at Essay 2, which uses literary devices.
The house perched on the hill like a forgotten guardian, shrouded by a sea of whispering trees. Time had etched its story on the crumbling walls, and the roof sagged under the weight of countless storms. The windows, jagged and empty, gazed at the world with hollow eyes while the door clung desperately to a single rusty hinge, groaning in the wind. Once a proud garden stretched before the house, but now it lay imprisoned by nature's wild embrace. Blades of grass reached skyward, defiant and unkempt, while unruly weeds snaked along the cracked path, reclaiming their territory. Inside, shadows danced on the walls, and the wooden floorboards sighed with every step, a lament for the days when laughter filled the air. The damp, earthy scent of decay clung to the air. In the kitchen, a table slumped to one side, its broken leg a casualty of time. Chairs stood like forgotten sentinels, cloaked in dust and draped with cobwebs spun by patient spiders. Upstairs, silence reigned supreme. The bedrooms were barren, save for a solitary bed frame, rusted and skeletal, crouching in a corner like a ghost of its former self. At night, the house came alive with the breath of the wind. It howled through shattered windows, tugging at the tattered curtains which flapped like wounded birds. The cold crept in, wrapping the house in a shroud of desolation. Once a home, now it stood as a relic of memories long abandoned.
So I'm sure you agree that this is a much better version. And let's break it down. And it's a much better version because it uses literary devices. So in red are the personifications: the house perched on the hill, the door clung desperately to a single rusty hinge, shadows danced on the walls, a table slumped to one side, etc. In blue we have similes. The house perched on a hill like a forgotten guardian. So anything with like and as are similes. Chairs stood like forgotten sentinels. The bed frame is like a ghost of its former self. The curtains flapped like wounded birds. So these are all similes in blue. And in green, we have imagery. Time etched its story on the crumbling walls, and the roof sagged under the weight of countless storms. Blades of grass reached skyward, defiant and unkempt. Okay, and we have metaphor in purple. Once a proud garden stretched before the house, and wrapping the house in a shroud of desolation. Symbolism, shrouded. So this is a symbol of death. For onomatopoeia, we have groaning in the wind, and we have a hyperbole here. It lay imprisoned by nature's wild embrace. So this is the list of literary devices used. I hope you have noticed that there are literary devices in every sentence, sometimes 2 or 3 devices in each sentence. Now let's look at the sensory details. In red, we have the sense of sight, the house perched on the hill, blades of grass reached skyward. The sense of hearing or sound, groaning in the wind, sight with every step, laughter filled the air, howled through shattered windows. The sense of touch, we have crumbling, jagged, damp. These are all textures, rusted, and then the cold crept in. We also have the sense of smell, especially this one, scent of decay and breath of the wind. The last thing I'm going to look at is showing and not telling. So I'm just going to take 2 examples. Time had etched its story on the crumbling walls, and the roof sagged under the weight of countless storms. So this is showing. Telling would be the house was old and abandoned, which is a bit boring. Another example, the tattered curtains flapped like wounded birds. This is showing. And telling would be the wind blew through the broken windows, which again is boring. So try to show and not tell. If you have questions, leave them in the description box below. And if you need tutoring, you can write to me here.
Hi everyone, welcome back to English Step by Step, where we help you level up your IGCSE writing skills. Today we're talking about similes, but not just any similes. We're going to learn how to create your own unique, interesting, and non-cliche similes that will make your writing stand out. Ready? Let's dive in. A simile compares 2 things using the words like or as. For example, her smile was like sunshine. He ran as fast as a cheetah. These are great, but let's face it, they're overused. If you want to impress the examiner, you need to come up with something fresh. Let me show you how. The first step is to zoom in on the specific qualities of the object or action you're describing. For example, instead of saying, her smile was like sunshine, ask yourself, what makes her smile unique? Maybe her smile is warm but also shy, or bright but fleeting. New simile was like a candle flickering in the dark, gentle and illuminating. Don't settle for the first comparison that pops into your head. Think of something unexpected. For instance, the water was as clear as glass. Try, the water was as clear as a polished mirror, reflecting the sky's every mood. A great simile doesn't just rely on sight. Use all 5 senses to create vivid comparisons. For example, her voice was like velvet can become her voice was like honey dripping from a comb, rich and slow with a hint of sweetness. Don't be afraid to mix ideas or use humor. Playful similes can add charm to your writing. For example, instead of he was as clumsy as an elephant, try he was as clumsy as a penguin on roller skates. Similes become memorable when they evoke emotions. Let's say you want to describe a child's laugh. Instead of The child's laugh was like a bell. Try, the child's laugh was like raindrops dancing on a tin roof, lively and uncontainable. Here are 20 unique similes to inspire you. 1. Her tears fell like petals from a dying rose. 2. The night was as silent as a library at midnight. 3. His anger burned like a wildfire racing through a dry forest. 4. The cake was as light as a cloud drifting on a summer breeze. 5. His thoughts swirled like leaves caught in a whirlpool. 6. The old car creaked like an ancient pirate ship. 7. Her perfume lingered like a melody you can't stop humming. 8. The sky turned as red as embers glowing in a dying fire. 9. His determination was as unyielding as a mountain standing against the wind. 10. The laughter bubbled up like soda fizz escaping a shaken can. 11. Her dress shimmered like sunlight on rippling water. 12. His words hit her like hailstones on fragile glass. 13. The cat moved as stealthily as a shadow slipping under the door. 14. The crowd's energy surged like a wave crashing onto the shore. 15. The forest was as dense as an unread library. 16. The city was alive, buzzing like a beehive at sunrise. 17. Her fear spread through her body like ink dropped in water. 18. The old house stood as proud as a warrior scarred from battle. 19. His joy exploded like fireworks on New Year's Eve. 20. The child clung to his mother like a burr stuck to a hiker's sock. Now it's your turn. Here's a challenge. Write a simile for these situations. Remember to avoid cliches. 1. The sound of rain on the roof. 2. A person's nervousness before a big event. 3. A sunset over the ocean. 'Pause the video, jot down your ideas, and share them in the comments below. I can't wait to see your creativity. Let's recap. 1. Focus on specific details. 2. Think outside the box. 3. Use all your senses. 4. Be playful and creative. 5. Connect to emotions. Thanks for watching. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Keep practicing, and soon your writing will shine as brightly as your ideas. See you next time.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to English Step by Step, where we make mastering English fun and simple. In today's lesson, we're diving into metaphors and extended metaphors. By the end of this video, you'll be able to create your own powerful metaphors and weave extended metaphors into your writing like a pro. Let's get started. First, what is a metaphor? A metaphor is a figure of speech that compares two unlike things without using like or as. It's a way of saying something is something else to create a vivid picture in the reader's mind. For example, her smile is sunshine. We're not saying her smile is like sunshine, we're saying it is sunshine. This makes the imagery more vivid and impactful. Why should we use metaphors in our writing? Metaphors make your writing more engaging and memorable. They help readers connect emotionally to your ideas by painting pictures with words. 1. Creates vivid imagery. 2. Engages the reader's imagination. 3. Simplifies complex ideas. 4. Adds emotional depth. Now let's learn how to write a metaphor. Here's a simple 3-step process. 1. Identify the idea or object you want to describe. 2. Think of another object or idea that shares similar qualities. 3. Combine them into a sentence where one is the other. Let's break that down further with examples and tips. Suppose you're writing about someone who's very determined. Start by asking, what's something that embodies determination? Maybe a mountain climber or a river carving its path through rock. Now create a metaphor. She is a river carving through stone. Here's another tip. Think about the emotions or qualities you want to convey. If you want to describe joy, you might think of sunlight or a blooming flower. Then write, his laughter is sunlight warming the room, or her happiness is a blooming garden. Be creative and let your imagination guide you. A quick warning, avoid overused metaphors like time is money unless you can give them a fresh twist. Instead, try something unique that reflects your voice as a writer. For example, instead of time is money, you could write, time is a thread slipping through the needle of life. This makes your metaphor more original and impactful. Here are more examples of metaphors. The world is a stage, and we are all actors. Her heart is a locked treasure chest. The classroom was a zoo, full of wild energy. Ideas are seeds waiting to grow. Next, what are extended metaphors? An extended metaphor takes a basic metaphor and develops it further, comparing the same two things over several sentences or even paragraphs. It's like stretching the metaphor to create a bigger picture. Life is a journey. Each day is a new step, some smooth and easy, others rocky and challenging. The road twists and turns, revealing surprises at every corner. In this example, life is compared to a journey, and this idea is developed with details about the road, steps, and surprises. Here's how you can craft your own extended metaphor in 4 steps. 1. Start with a strong metaphor. 2. Think about related qualities or actions of the metaphor. 3. Expand on those qualities with details. 4. Ensure it fits naturally into your writing. Let's explore these steps in detail. First, choose a central idea and a metaphor to represent it. For instance, if you're describing someone's emotions, you might say, her emotions are a storm. Now think about how storms behave. They can be wild, unpredictable, or calming after they pass. Next, expand on these qualities. You could write, her emotions are a storm, fierce and unrelenting. At times, thunder roared through her words, and rain streaked down her face. But after the tempest passed, a peaceful stillness settled over her, like a clear sky after the rain. See how we built the imagery step by step? Here are more examples of extended metaphors. 1. Creativity as a garden. Creativity is a garden. Ideas are seeds, scattered across fertile soil. Some sprout into vibrant blooms, while others take longer to break through the surface. With patience and care, the garden flourishes, but without attention, weeds of doubt can take over. 2. A person's life as a book. His life is a book, each chapter filled with lessons and adventures. Some pages are dog-eared from being revisited, while others are smudged with tears. The ending is still unwritten, but every day adds a new sentence to the story. 3. Love as a fire. Love is a fire. It starts as a spark, igniting the coldest hearts. When nurtured, it grows into a warm, steady flame that lights up the darkest nights. But if neglected, it can burn out, leaving behind only ashes of what once was. Finally, make sure your extended metaphor flows naturally and fits the tone of your writing. An extended metaphor should enhance your story, not distract from it. Keep it consistent and avoid mixing metaphors. For example, don't start with a storm and suddenly switch to describing a wildfire. Now it's your turn. Here are 2 prompts. Pause the video and try creating a metaphor and an extended metaphor for each. 1. Write a metaphor to describe time. 2. Write an extended metaphor about a person's emotions being like the ocean. Don't forget to share your metaphors in the comments section below. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Let's recap. Today we learned that a metaphor compares two unlike things to create vivid imagery, and an extended metaphor develops that comparison further. With practice, you'll use these techniques to make your writing more engaging and creative. If you found this lesson helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to English Step by Step, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next lesson. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Today, I'm going to be talking about writing with emotions and why we should do so. I will show you paragraphs written without emotion and then with emotion. I will also show you the different emotions that you can insert into paragraphs or into your essays. Welcome to English Step by Step. My name is Miss Wee. I make free video lessons for English first and second language. Let's start with a description of a family home, and this is without emotion.
The family home is a two-story house with a red brick exterior and a sloping tiled roof. A small front garden, enclosed by a low wooden fence, has neatly trimmed hedges and a narrow pathway leading to the white front door. Inside, the ground floor consists of a living room with a gray sofa, a dining area with a wooden table, and a compact kitchen with modern appliances. Upstairs, there are 3 bedrooms, each with a single window, and a shared bathroom with a white bathtub. At the back, a modest garden contains a lawn, a clothesline, and a small shed.
So can you see that without emotion, the description is very boring. It's very sterile. It's just a list of things in the family home, and there's nothing tying all these things together. Now let's have a look at another one with emotion. In this paragraph, there is a warm, nostalgic emotion.
The family home stands like a familiar embrace, its red brick walls holding years of laughter and stories. The little front garden, though simple, bursts with flowers once planted by loving hands, and the well-worn path to the white door feels like a welcome back. Inside, the living room's gray sofa is soft with years of lazy afternoons. The wooden dining table still bears faint scratches from childhood games, and the kitchen carries the scent of countless home-cooked meals. Upstairs, the bedrooms hold echoes of whispered bedtime stories, and the shared bathroom has seen sleepy morning routines and playful splashes. Out back, the garden, though modest, has witnessed summer barbecues and quiet evening reflections, a space where time lingers just a little longer.
I hope that you can see that the underlined parts bring out a warm, nostalgic emotion. And it's much more interesting in the first version where there was no emotion and it was very plain and uninteresting. Now let's move on to another one with a different emotion. So this one has a cold, isolated emotion.
The family home stands in silence, its red brick walls unyielding and distant. The front garden, though tidy, feels barren, the neatly trimmed hedges offering little warmth. The white front door opens to a house where the air is still, the gray sofa in the living room barely touched, the wooden dining table unmarked by conversation. The kitchen is spotless, devoid of lingering scents or signs of recent use. Upstairs, the bedrooms are impersonal, each with a single window that lets in just enough light to cast long shadows. The shared bathroom is functional, its white bathtub gleaming but lifeless. Outside, the back garden is empty, the lawn trimmed but unused, the clothesline holding nothing but echoes of what once was.
So the underlined parts here bring out the cold, isolated emotion. Again, it makes it interesting and it also ties things together. We're going to do one last one. And this one has an uneasy, tense emotion.
The family home looms under a dull sky, its red brick exterior solid yet unwelcoming. The front garden appears carefully maintained, yet something about its precision feels too exact, too forced. The narrow path to the white door is worn, not by welcome footsteps, but by hurried ones. Inside, the living room's gray sofa sits stiff and uninviting. The wooden dining table holds no trace of warmth, and the kitchen, though clean, feels sterile rather than homely. Upstairs, the bedrooms are quiet, their closed doors hinting at secrets, while the shared bathroom, though ordinary, carries an eerie stillness. Out back, the garden is oddly motionless, the shed door slightly ajar as if someone left in a hurry, the air thick with something unseen but felt.
Do you feel the uneasy, tense emotion? So before you start writing a descriptive essay, I would suggest that you decide on the emotion that you like to evoke. This will make your essay much more interesting. It will also make your description stand out, especially if you choose an emotion which is an unusual one. When I say an unusual one, I mean that it is one that other students might not use. So, for example, most students would describe a family home as a warm and loving one. So, when you have an uneasy, tense emotion, it does make your description stand out. Now, we can go further with this. Once you have decided on an emotion, you can use an extended metaphor, which will make your writing even more advanced. If you don't know what an extended metaphor is, I'm going to put a link up here for you. Please go and watch that video. I'm going to come back now to the second version with the warm, nostalgic emotion. And because it has a warm, nostalgic emotion, I'm going to use the extended metaphor of a worn but beloved storybook.
The family home stands like a well-loved storybook, its red brick walls bound together by years of memories. The little front garden, though modest, is a preface filled with blooms planted by loving hands, leading to the well-trodden path that guides visitors to the white front door, its cover slightly worn but welcoming. Inside, each room turns like a familiar page. The grey sofa in the living room soft with the weight of shared laughter, the wooden dining table etched with faint traces of childhood games like annotations in the margins. The kitchen carries the scent of old recipes passed down, its cupboards lined with the ingredients of tradition. Upstairs, the bedrooms hold whispered bedtime stories, their windows like open pages letting in the changing light of different chapters. The bathroom, its mirror fogged from years of hurried mornings, reflects both past and present. Out back, the garden is the epilogue, a place where summer barbecues and quiet evening reflections bring a sense of completion, a story that lingers long after the last page is turned.
So an extended metaphor is basically a metaphor that has been used again and again. Here we have the metaphor of a storybook. The family home is compared to a storybook because it holds memories. So I've used the cover of the storybook, I've used pages of the book, annotations, the pages and chapters, the epilogue, and so on. I'm sure you can see that this is an improved version of this, and definitely a much better version than the original paragraph, the one without any emotion. This was the version with the cold, isolated emotion. And because it has a cold, isolated emotion, I'm going to use the extended metaphor of a vacant shell.
The family home stands like an empty shell, its red brick exterior firm but hollow, offering shelter without warmth. The front garden, though maintained, feels as lifeless as dried coral, its neatly trimmed hedges forming barriers rather than welcomes. The narrow pathway leads to the white front door, closed like a forgotten entrance to a space once filled but now void. Inside, the living room's grey sofa is untouched, as if a relic left behind by absent inhabitants. The wooden dining table remains pristine, its surface unmarked by movement, silent like an abandoned seafloor where life no longer stirs. The kitchen, despite its modern appliances, is devoid of the comforting scent of meals, its cold metal fixtures reflecting only emptiness. Upstairs, the bedrooms stand like hollow chambers, their windows allowing just enough light to cast distant, unfeeling shadows. The shared bathroom, immaculate but impersonal, feels like a tide pool where nothing lingers for long. Out back, the garden stretches out, its small lawn like a barren seabed, and the shed, though standing, is as forgotten as a shipwreck left to time.
I hope you can see how this metaphor of a vacant shell has been used again and again to create this cold, isolated emotion. I hope that you can see how much it has improved from this version and definitely from the original version without emotion. We're going to move on to the final one. So this is the one with the uneasy, tense emotion. And the metaphor here is a stage set for a play with no audience.
The family home stands like a theatre stage after the final curtain has fallen, perfectly arranged, yet unsettlingly empty. The red brick exterior, like a well-painted backdrop, suggests stability. But beneath the surface, something feels rehearsed rather than real. The front garden is pristine, too pristine, like a set piece carefully positioned rather than tended with care. The narrow path leads to the white front door, which feels like an entrance waiting for an actor to step through, yet no one does. Inside, the living room's grey sofa is stiff and staged, the wooden dining table untouched, as if expecting an audience that never arrives. The kitchen gleams under artificial light, its polished surfaces reflecting a space that looks lived in but lacks the warmth of true habitation. Upstairs, the bedrooms are eerily still, their closed doors like dressing rooms hiding secrets behind thin walls. The bathroom mirror reflects not just faces but an atmosphere of tension, as if something unspoken lingers in the air. Out back, the garden feels too still, the shed door slightly ajar, as if someone left mid-scene, the performance abandoned before its conclusion.
So the stage metaphor is quite clear. Here you have like a theater stage, backdrop, rehearsed, a set piece, actor, staged, audience. So that's like spotlight, dressing rooms, thin walls, a scene, performance. Again, it's a huge improvement. So as you can see, if you can include emotion in your writing, you will have a much better piece of writing. If you can include an extended metaphor to bring out the emotion, it is even more advanced. So for now, try this. Once you have mastered this, you can try and include an extended metaphor as well. If you found this video useful, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future lessons. I have many other videos, make sure that you check them out. If you have questions, please leave them in the description box below. And if you need tutoring, you can contact me here.
Hello everyone, welcome back to English Step by Step, your channel for mastering English. Today we're diving into adjectives and adverbs. These two are like the seasoning of language, adding flavor and depth to your sentences. So let's get started. First, let's define these terms. Adjectives describe or modify nouns and pronouns. They answer questions like what kind, which one, how many. Example, the tall boy ran quickly. Here, tall describes the boy. Adverbs describe or modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. They answer questions like how, when, where, to what extent. Example, the tall boy ran quickly. Here, quickly describes how he ran. Using adjectives and adverbs can transform your sentences. Let's compare. Without adjectives, adverbs, the girl walked. With adjectives, adverbs, the cheerful girl walked gracefully. Now let's look at a whole paragraph. Without adjectives, adverbs, the sun rose, birds sang, the village was awake, people worked. With adjectives, adverbs, the golden sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a warm glow. Birds chirped melodiously in the crisp morning air. The sleepy village stirred to life, and its cheerful inhabitants began their work eagerly. See how adjectives and adverbs add color, detail, and emotion to your writing? Use them to paint vivid pictures for your readers. When using adjectives, follow these tips. 1. Be specific. Instead of saying nice weather, say sunny weather. 2. Avoid overloading. Don't pile on adjectives unnecessarily. For example, the big, tall, enormous building sounds excessive. 3. Use comparatives and superlatives. For comparisons, use forms like bigger or biggest. For example, this is the tallest building in the city. Did you know there's a specific order for adjectives in English? Here it is. 1. Opinion, beautiful, lovely, ugly. 2. Size, big, small, enormous. 3. Age, old, new, ancient. 4. Shape, round, square, flat. 5. Color, red, blue, green. 6. Origin, French, American, Japanese. Material, wooden, metal, plastic. 8. Purpose, sleeping, as in sleeping bag. Cooking, as in cooking pot. For example, a lovely small old round wooden table. Let's practice. Rearrange the following adjectives in the correct order. A metal big rectangular French clock. Rectangular French metal clock. Here are more examples. 1. An ancient Chinese delicate vase. Correct answer, a delicate ancient Chinese vase. 2. A plastic green large water bottle. Correct answer, a large green plastic water bottle. 3. A sleeping round cozy bag. Correct answer, a cozy round sleeping bag. Now for adverbs. 1. Place them correctly. Adverbs usually go after the verb they modify at the end of the sentence. For example, she sang beautifully. 2. Don't overuse. Too many adverbs can make your writing clunky. For instance, instead of he ran very quickly, you could say he sprinted. 3. Use intensifiers sparingly. Words like very or extremely are useful but can weaken your writing if overused.
To make your writing even more impactful, here's a list of useful adjectives and adverbs that will enrich your vocabulary. These words can be especially helpful in narrative and descriptive essays. 1. Appearance, beautiful, elegant, radiant, vibrant, grotesque. 2. Size, enormous, tiny, gigantic, petite, massive. 3. Age, ancient, youthful, recent, prehistoric, ageless. Emotion, cheerful, melancholic, furious, content, anxious. 5. Weather, sunny, stormy, breezy, humid, frigid. 6. Taste and smell, spicy, bitter, aromatic, sour, bland. 7. Texture, rough, smooth, bumpy, silky, coarse. 8. Sound, deafening, melodious, shrill, hushed, thunderous. 1. Manner, how, gracefully, clumsily, rapidly, cautiously, eagerly. 2. Frequency, how often, always, rarely, often, occasionally, seldom. 3. Time, when, immediately, eventually, recently, simultaneously, soon. 4. Degree, to what extent, completely, slightly, utterly, intensely, barely. 5. Place, where, here, everywhere, nearby, abroad, above. Let's see some examples of these words in action. 1. The radiant sun set over the peaceful, sleepy village. 2. She walked gracefully across the stage, captivating everyone's attention. 3. The thunderous applause echoed in the enormous hall.
Now it's your turn. Improve these sentences by adding adjectives or adverbs. 1. The dog barked. 2. She completed the test. Possible answers. 1. The loud dog barked incessantly. 2. She completed the difficult test effortlessly. Great job today. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye for now.